Alright, let's begin. So we did some practice questions on proving identities yesterday. So now we can do a number of different types of questions from the worksheet. How many of you attempted at least 5 questions since yesterday, after our yesterday's class? Okay, good. So let me know if you have had any problems. We'll start by discussing them and then we'll see if there are any other problems as well. Any problems? 44. Okay, yeah. 46. 27. Okay, let me have a look at them. 27, 44 and 46. तो देखते हैं अभी हम इनको कर सकते हैं. Alright, 44 is this. Okay, the second part of this. Okay, so we haven't done this yet. I'm taking it. 46 is also another type of question. I'm taking it. 27. Okay, 27 we can do. Let's start with 26 and then we'll do one new concept today. Okay, उसके बाद फिर we can do some of the other questions like that as well. हम देखते हैं अभी बाद में. Let's start with 27. Alright, this is the first part of this question. We have to prove the identity 1 over sine theta minus 1 over tan theta whole square. This equals this thing. ये हमें prove करना है. Which side do we start from? Which side should we start from? The left hand side, right? We have two different functions, sine and tan. Okay, so this is more complex. We also have a square there. Right side पे square नहीं है. Left side is more complex. Okay, so we should be starting from the left hand side here. Okay, now we have 1 over sine theta minus 1 over tan theta whole squared. This is what we've got. We have to prove that this is equal to this. क्या करें सबसे पहले? Square कर लें? Okay, so that could be one starting point. You could think, okay, let's square both sides. Alright, let's do that. Square करेंगे तो क्या होगा? This is a minus b whole square. So this becomes a square minus 2ab plus b square. What's a square? That will be 1 over sine square theta. 1 over sine square theta minus 2ab. That's 2 over sine theta into tan theta. Does that make sense? 2 into a into b plus 1 over tan square theta. This is what we end up getting. अब क्या करें? Take LCM. That could be the next logical step after this, right? You have one fraction on the right side. इस पे LCM ले लें and see if that gives you anything. Alright, that could be the next thing that you could do. Yes? Okay, so this is a minus b whole squared. This is a square. 1 over sine theta whole square. That's 1 square over sine square theta. Minus 2ab. 2 into this, you have 2 over sine theta, tan theta. Then you have plus b square, that's 1 over tan square theta. Okay? Is that okay? Now, what could we do next after this? LCM लेंगे या और कोई suggestion और कुछ कर सकते हैं? LCM ले लें? Okay. tan को replace कर लें instead? Okay, so tan को क्या करें? tan को sin over cos कर लें. Why? How would that help? ठीक है कर लेते हैं, लेकिन उसका क्या फायदा होगा? How would that help? Sin को भी cos में कर लें. ओके ठीक है. सो यू आर सजेस्टिंग हम इस साइन स्क्वायर को अगर कॉज में कर लें, वी कुड डू दैट, बट लेकिन ये साइन तो अभी भी रह जाएगा. इसको कैसे करेंगे? इस साइन थीटा को कैसे करेंगे? क्या लिखेंगे? इसको लिखना पड़ेगा 1 माइनस कॉस स्क्वायर थीटा का स्क्वायर रूट. देन दैट्स गोइंग टू गेट टू कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, सो वी डोंट वांट टू डू दैट. अच्छा, so there was a suggestion there. Muniba said we could write tan as sin over cos. Now that's actually going to be helpful here. The reason for that is, अगर मैं tan को sin over cos लिख दो यहाँ पे, see what happens. 1 over sin square theta minus 2 over sin theta into sin theta over cos theta, right? Plus 1 over sin square theta over cos square theta. Now what do we get from this? If we were to simplify this further, it becomes 1 over sin square theta minus 2 over, this cos theta is going to go to the numerator. Does everyone get that? Yes. So that becomes 2 into cos theta. In the denominator, we would have sine into sine, which is sin square theta, plus 1 over sin square over cos square. This cos square is going to go to the numerator. So we have cos square here over sin square. Now why is this helpful? Because now we just have the same denominator for all of those fractions. So LCM लेके कोई बहुत ज़्यादा complicated चीज़ नहीं बनेगी. अगर हम यहाँ पे इस पॉइंट पे एलसीएम लेते तो क्या होता? एलसीएम आपका क्या आना था? साइन स्क्वायर थीटा इंटू टैन स्क्वायर थीटा, एंड देन इन द न्यूमरेटर यू वुड हैव गॉट टैन स्क्वायर थीटा माइनस 2 साइन थीटा टैन थीटा प्लस साइन स्क्वायर थीटा. वो काफ़ी कॉम्प्लिकेट हो जाता. तो अगर हम tan को वहाँ पे sin over cos से रिप्लेस करें, उसका फ़ायदा क्या होता है? हमारे पास डिनोमिनेटर सेम आ जाता है. इज दैट ओके? अच्छा, नाउ लेट्स डू दिस. लेट्स सिंप्लीफाई दिस फर्दर. दिस गिव्स अस 1 माइनस 2 cos थीटा प्लस cos स्क्वायर थीटा होल ओवर sin स्क्वायर थीटा. Now keep the end in mind. This is what we want. 1 minus cos theta over 1 plus cos theta. Now we think about converting everything to cos. ऊपर तो वैसे ही cos है, नीचे denominator में हम क्या कर सकते हैं? Denominator को हम लिख सकते हैं 1 minus cos square theta. What do we do now? Remember, what do we want at the end? We want 1 minus cos theta over 1 plus cos theta. इसके बाद क्या कर सकते हैं अब? आइडेंटिटी कौन सी आइडेंटिटी? a minus b whole square. Okay. A minus b whole square, does that make sense to anyone else? A minus b whole square कहाँ पे लगेगी? A minus a square minus b square? But that's for the denominator. What about the numerator? Numerator is actually in the form a square minus 2ab plus b square. If it's hard to understand, what you can do is you can start from the denominator first. Denominator में 1 minus cos square theta आ रहा है. What can you change it to? This becomes 1 plus cos theta into 1 minus cos theta. Does this make sense? A square minus b square था. Remember हमने कल कहा था कि 1 minus 1 को हम 1 square consider कर सकते हैं. So a square minus b square, that becomes a plus b into a minus b. Now what do we want at the end? We want 1 plus cos theta. So we need to somehow get rid of this 1 minus cos theta. That's what you think? अच्छा इसको किसी तरह से खत्म करना है. So we cancellation करनी है numerator के साथ, right? So try to factorize the numerator somehow. How do you factorize the numerator? It's a quadratic expression. Midterm break कर सकते हैं. Midterm break करेंगे तो क्या होएगा? We got 1 and 1. So 1 के 1 प्रोडक्ट आना चाहिए, ऐड करके ये -2 आना चाहिए. इसके फैक्टर्स क्या बनेंगे? माइनस कॉस थीटा एंड माइनस कॉस थीटा प्लस कॉस स्क्वायर थीटा. मिड टर्म ब्रेक जिस तरह करते हैं उसी तरह से. Does that make sense? अगर आप इसको cos को अगर c assume करो, it's an expression like this: 1 minus 2c plus 2c square. Can we factorize this? Can we break the midterm for this? This becomes 1 minus c plus c square. All right? We can directly write it, but if you're able to figure that out, then yes. But most people would not be able to recognize at that point कि अच्छा ये exactly वो form है. तो फिर वो the other way is that you factorize. तो फिर देखो इससे क्या हो जाएगा. अच्छा factorize कर लिया. Factorize करके क्या मिला आपको? 1 common लिया यहाँ से. That gives you 1 into 1 minus cos theta common from here. And that gives you 1 minus cos theta as well, divided by 1 plus cos theta into 1 minus cos theta. You've got two factors in the numerator, 1 minus cos theta into 1 minus cos theta. In the denominator, you have 1 plus cos theta into 1 minus cos theta. 1 minus cos theta and 1 minus cos theta, they get cancelled, and you have what you want on the right side, which is 1 minus cos theta over 1 plus cos theta. This is equal to the right hand side. Does that make sense? How many marks was this? 3 marks. Is there another way of doing this? Could we do this quicker? अब देखें, ये थोड़ी सी लक भी है कि आप start कहाँ से करते हो. Sometimes you end up doing the wrong thing as the first step. Okay, so यहाँ पे हमने square पहले कर लिया, right? And that's okay. That's the first thing that comes to mind कि अच्छा चलो square कर लें यहाँ पे, and that leads you to this direction. Eventually हो गया, but it took a bit long. But you could actually do something else here as well. And now this is something that comes with a lot of practice. आप बहुत सारे इस तरह के problems करेंगे, then you get these ideas quicker कि अच्छा इसको इस तरह करेंगे तो जल्दी simplify हो जाएगा. So this is another way you could think about this. You have the left hand side, that is 1 over sine theta minus 1 over tan theta whole squared. Now when you square this, you should realize कि अच्छा जब square करते हैं तो we're getting 3 terms. It's going to start getting quite complicated. Before squaring anything, can we just replace tan with sine over cos here? Because if we do that, we're going to get something very simple, because that's going to give us 1 over sine theta minus 1 over sine theta over cos theta, and that becomes 1 minus cos theta, or let me actually show another step here, 1 over sine theta minus cos theta over sine theta whole squared. And now before you square it, you can just write it like this: 1 minus cos theta whole squared over sine square theta, or let's say sine theta. Let's take LCM first. 1 minus cos theta over sine theta. LCM le liya, whole square, you could split it. This is 1 minus cos theta whole squared over sine square theta. Does that make sense? So we have 1 minus cos theta whole square, and the denominator we've got sine square theta. Now let's convert the denominator 2 cos. That is going to give us 1 minus cos theta whole squared divided by 1 minus cos squared theta. What do we do now? Fatima, we cancel this 2 with this 2, right? Can you do that? नहीं? क्यों नहीं? ये सिर्फ cos के ऊपर स्क्वायर है, ऊपर होल का स्क्वायर है, राइट? सो वी कांट डू दिस कैंसिलेशन. अभी इस तरह से कैंसिल नहीं करना. क्या करेंगे? डिनोमिनेटर पे हम पहले वो आइडेंटिटी अप्लाई कर देंगे. इट बिकम्स 1 प्लस कॉस थीटा इंटू 1 माइनस कॉस थीटा एंड द न्यूमरेटर वी हैव 1 माइनस कॉस थीटा होल स्क्वायर्ड. नाउ 1 माइनस कॉस थीटा होल स्क्वायर्ड, इसकी एक पावर इससे कैंसिल हो गई इस पूरे से. And what are we left with? We're left with 1 minus cos theta over 1 plus cos theta, which is the right hand side. And this turned out to be much quicker. इसमें मैंने steps अभी ज़्यादा show किए हैं. You could actually just get rid of some of these steps. आप इसको directly ऐसे लिख सकते थे, for instance. So, yeah, but this is much quicker. Again, you could do it in both ways. अब एग्ज़ाम में बस होता है कि आप कभी एक डायरेक्शन में चले जाते हो, कभी दूसरे डायरेक्शन में चले जाते हो. इवेंचुअली हो जाता है, इवेंचुअली हो जाएगा, बट one path is going to take slightly longer than others. How would you figure out which is more efficient? By doing at least 20-30 questions like this, and then you will start getting better at it. ओके, सो दिस कम्स विद प्रैक्टिस. क्योंकि स्टैंडर्ड मेथड नहीं है कि अच्छा ये करेंगे तो हमेशा आपको जल्दी हो जाएगा. या प्रैक्टिस करेंगे एंड विल स्टार्ट फिगरिंग दिस आउट योरसेल्व्स. ऑलराइट, दैट वाज द फर्स्ट पार्ट. इसमें आपने प्रूफ करना था. नाउ लेट्स लुक एट द सेकंड वन. Hence solve this equation. So this whole thing that you had on the left side, it says that is equal to 2 over 5. Now we've already simplified that and we've said that that is equivalent to this. So अब सब equation के में क्या करें? जो left hand side है उसको replace कर दें with 1 minus cos theta over 1 plus cos theta. And then you can solve that equation. Okay, this is the second part. Let's replace this thing. This is going to give us 1 minus cos theta over 1 plus cos theta. This equals 2 over 5. This is the equation. We have the values of theta between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. Cross multiply, that gives you 5 minus 5 cos theta equals 2 plus 2 cos theta, take everything to one side, minus 7 cos theta, or constant to the other, that gives you minus 3 here. Cos theta equals 3 over 7. You find the basic angle, cos alpha equals 3 over 7. What's the basic angle? 64.62 degrees. Now, think of quadrants. Cos is positive in the first and the fourth quadrant. So you've got one angle here and another angle here. 0 to 360 आपका interval है. One of them is going to be in the first quadrant, which is 64.6 degrees, and the other is in the fourth quadrant, which is 360. So this whole circle minus alpha, which is minus 64.62, and that turns out to be 295.4 degrees. This is the other answer that you have. This was the second part. Now, in a lot of such problems in trigonometry, you'll have one part on proving identities, and in the next part, you'll be asked to solve an equation. Even if for some reason you're not able to do the first part, हो सकता है आपने कुछ part कर लिया उसका, then you can't prove the exact thing. आपने वो पूरा क्वेश्चन नहीं छोड़ देना. In most situations, the next part is going to be much easier. इसमें second part में कुछ भी नहीं था. That was 4 marks. तो अगर आपसे first part में आप stuck हो जाते हो किसी point के ऊपर, you don't just leave the whole thing. आपके पास इसका, आपको पता है second part के लिए, you don't need the first part. It's already given कि ये इसके equal है, आप उसको use कर सकते हो. These are easy 4 marks. You should not skip the second part for this. अगर आपसे first पूरा नहीं हुआ for some reason. All right, this is part 2 of this. Any questions? No? All right, now let's discuss another concept then. Sometimes you have equations which are not as straightforward as this was. थोड़ी सी उसमें कोई और complication आ जाती है. Let's have a look at some of those equations. Let me start with an example. Equations involving let me actually not introduce this terminology right now. Now, what this means is, if you have an equation like this, sine theta equals 0.3, you know how to solve this, right? If you have sine x equals something, or let's say cos x equals something, again, given a range for x or theta, you know how to solve this equation. But what if it's not x or theta, but it's some other function of x? वो x की terms में कोई चीज़ है या theta की terms में कोई चीज़ है, फिर क्या करेंगे? Now let me write down an example here. Let's say you have cos of theta, or theta plus 60 degrees. This is equal to 0.2, and you're given an interval that theta is between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. This is the interval that you're given. Theta is between these two values. Now you need to solve this equation. Okay? Now the problem is, the angle in this case is not theta. Angle is something else. Angle is theta plus 60. ये जो पूरी चीज़ है, this is what your angle is. All right? Now, how do you solve equations like these? Interval that you're given here is for theta. It's not for the angle. It's not for the whole angle. सबसे पहले आपने क्या करना है इसके अंदर? So this is one way to do it. That you say, let's say A represents this whole thing, theta plus 60. So denoted with another letter. Let's say A equals theta plus 60. All right? And now the equation becomes cos of A equals 0.2. Make sense? Now this is something that you know how to solve, right? We don't have anything else inside cos now. It's just one single letter. इसको हमें solve करना आता है. But there's a slight problem here, and that is the interval that we're given is for theta. It's not for A. आप क्या करेंगे? इस interval को भी A में convert कर लेंगे. How would you do that? Put 0 in this. What do you get from that? 0 theta की जगह डाल देंगे. A की value क्या आएगी? 60. We have 0 plus 60 here. Put 360 in this in place of theta. What do you get? 420. So 360 plus 60, that gives you 420. So the interval for A that we've got here is actually between 60 and 420. That's the interval for A. Now you just solve the equation like we normally do. A की values figure out कर लें इस interval को देखते हुए. Make sense? Now what are the values of A? Let's find the basic angle. इसको पहले basic angle निकाल लें. Cos alpha equals 0.2. What's the basic angle? Cos inverse of 0.2? 78.46 degrees. This is what your basic angle is. Now let's find the values of A. Which quadrants can you be in? Cos is positive, that's the first quadrant, or the fourth quadrant. So you can have a basic angle here, or you can have a basic angle here. These are the two possibilities that we have. Now this is the first angle that we're getting. What's this? 78.46. Does this fall in the interval that we had? 60 and 420? It does. So the one value of A that you've got is 78.46. Let's go around one full circle. Not full circle. Let's come to this point. What's this point? This is 360 minus 78.46, and this gives us 281.5 degrees. This is another value of A that we're getting. Okay. Now the interval is going to something greater than 360. So we also need to check कि पूरा circle घूम के दोबारा तो नहीं हमें कोई आंसर मिल रहा है यहाँ पे. 360 plus 78, that's going to go outside the interval. So no, we're not getting anything there. These are the only two values of A that we have. Make sense? Now once we're done until this point, we know we were actually looking for values of theta, not A. तो ये जो हमने substitution की थी पहले, वो वापस उसमें डाल के A की value उसमें डालें वापस और theta उससे आपके पास आ जाएगा उससे. Input these values in that equation. A was equal to theta plus 60. That means 78.46 degrees equals theta plus 60. From this you get theta equal to 18.46. And 281.54 equals theta plus 60, and that gives you theta equal to 221.5 degrees. These are the two values of theta that we get from this. Make sense? Any questions on this? Yes. Yes, we can also do that. So you don't have to use this substitution. Just some people just find this a bit easier if they use another variable. But you can do this directly as well. That works. Range adjust करनी पड़ेगी. Okay, let me give you another example. Try this yourselves. Let's say we have sine of theta plus 75. इस actually question में ना range की वजह से problem आया नहीं. So the example was such कि range का इतना फर्क पड़ा नहीं इसके ऊपर. So 0 to 360 के दरमियान में आपके पास आ रहे थे. But sometimes the range does make a difference. Try this. Sine of theta plus 75, that equals 0.2, and the interval that you have is again from 0 to 360. Take a few minutes and try this question and see what you get. Yeah, so you can do either substitution or without substitution. That's your choice. दोनों तरह कर सकते हैं. एंगल और weird है. कैलकुलेटर मोड आपका सही है, डिग्रीज में है. Anyone who's done? What values are you getting for theta?
I got 1.
1?
Negative
Okay, what's that?
minus 48.
Minus
48.46.
48.46, okay.
And
And 108.46. And 311.54. Okay. Is this possible? We are given that theta has to be between 0 and 360. The negative तो आंसर नहीं आ सकता हमारा. Okay? We can't have a negative answer. Are the other two correct? Anyone else who is getting these two values? Or one of these values? 108.46 आ रही है किसी की? नहीं? Okay. Anyone else who has the answers? Yes, Huria. 93.4 to 96.5. There's some rounding off error somewhere, I think. And what about 93.4? That should be 47 then, which becomes 5. Can you check that? $93.5, right? Okay, so 93.5 and 296.5. Khadija. Same answers? Anyone else getting something else? Any other answers? Anyone getting these two answers? What about the rest? Okay, let's try this. So I'm assuming these are correct. Let's see if they are. Alright, so how do we start? First of all, one idea is that we assume that this is another variable, because remember this whole thing is the angle. इस पूरे को आपने देखना है इकट्ठे. Let's denote it by another variable. Let's say a equals theta plus 75. Alright. Now when you do that, you get sine of a equal to 0.2. Make sense? Now the range that you're given, the interval that you're given, that is for theta, not for a. So you have to adjust that interval as well. If you input 0 here, what value of a do you get? 0 plus 75, that's 75. If you input 360 here, that gives you 360 plus 75. So a is between 75 and 435 degrees. So the answers that you get from the quadrants should fall within this interval. Now let's just follow our standard process. Find the basic angle, sine alpha, what's that? Sine alpha equals 0.2, what's the value of alpha? 11.5? 11.534. 54 degrees. Okay, this is the basic angle that we're getting. अब क्या करें? We look at quadrants. यहाँ पे quadrants बना लेते हैं. Which quadrants can we be in? Sine is positive. That's the first quadrant or the second quadrant. So you could either be here. This is 11.54, or you could be here, which is also 11.54. अब क्या करेंगे? A की values लिखेंगे. A equals 11.54. Does that fall in the interval? Interval is starting from 75. That's not in the interval. Okay. तो हम क्या कहेंगे? A equals it does not equal this. तो ये possibility नहीं हो सकती. आप नहीं consider करेंगे. Let's consider the next angle. What's that? 180 minus 11.54, and A turns out to be 168.46. This is one value of A that we are getting. But notice here, the upper limit is greater than 360. So we also need to check what happens after we complete one circle. तो आपको सर्कल पूरा घूम के दोबारा भी देखना है कि आप वापस इस पे आ सकते हो, तो वो क्या इंटरवल के अंदर आता है? What about this angle? This is also in our interval. That angle is 360 plus 11.54, and that gives us 371.54. This is also in the interval. Hadia, if you did not adjust this range, you would have ignored this answer because that's outside the range. आप range adjust करेंगे तभी आपको पता चलेगा 371 आपके इसके एक possible answer हो सकता है. So that's why it's important to adjust the range. Is that okay? So now we've got 371, but that's not our final answer. We were actually looking for theta. Theta की क्या वो उसके साथ था link? A के साथ? A equals theta plus 75. Let's input values in that. A equals theta plus 75 tha. Input values of A in this equation and see what you get from that. Theta plus 75, no sorry. A is 168. 168.46 equals theta plus 75. What do you get for theta? ये क्या आता है? 93.5 degrees, and the other is 371.54. That equals theta plus 75, and theta turns out to be 296.54 from here. 296.5. These are the two answers that we get from this. Does everyone get this process? इसमें कोई मसला? तो जब भी आपके पास इस तरह से x या थीटा की जगह पे कुछ और आ जाएगा, this is what you would need to do. All right? Now you could make this slightly shorter by not using that substitution. Let me just tell you that as well. Then it's your choice if you want to use the substitution or not. So you could do this without the substitution as well. प्रोसेस सारा वही रहेगा, तो चेंज नहीं होगा, बस आप एक नया लेटर अगर ना इंट्रोड्यूस करें डायरेक्टली कर लें. दैट इज ऑल्सो पॉसिबल. लेट मी यूज डू द सेम एग्जाम्पल यूजिंग दैट. साइन ऑफ थीटा प्लस 75 डिग्रीज इक्वल्स 0.2. यू हैव टू रिमेंबर दैट दिस होल थिंग इज द एंगल. तो जब आप क्वाड्रेंट्स पे देख रहे होंगे इस पूरे को देखना है आपने. ठीक है? You have to keep that in mind. Interval for theta is from 0 to 360. Okay, now this is another way of doing this. You don't introduce another variable, just keep it like this. Find the basic angle first directly. Whatever is here, आपने बस उस पूरे को क्या करना है? अल्फा से रिप्लेस कर देना. यू गेट साइन अल्फा इक्वल 0.2 बिकॉज दैट होल थिंग इज द एंगल, राइट? जो मर्जी रखा हुआ अंदर, उस पूरे को आपने अल्फा से रिप्लेस कर देना. इज दैट ओके? नाउ फाइंड द बेसिक एंगल. व्हाट्स द बेसिक एंगल? इट वाज 11.54 degrees. This was the basic angle. But now we need to adjust the range. Range is for theta. What is your angle? Angle is theta plus 75. So instead of theta, you need an interval for theta plus 75. what you can do is just input 0 here. If you were to input 0 here, 0 plus 75, what would that be? 75. And again, input 360 here. 360 plus 75, that would be 435. हम यहाँ पे लिख लेते हैं. Theta plus 75 का interval क्या बनेगा? That will be from 75 to 435. Now, when you're looking at quadrants, this is going to be the range that you use. Interval आपने यही use करना है quadrants के ऊपर. Make sense? Now, let me draw quadrants. You've got these two basic angles. You can either be in the first quadrant or in the second quadrant. This is 11.54, and this is also 11.54. Again, 11.54 is not in this interval, so you don't have to consider that. This is your first angle. What's that angle? 180 minus 11.54. This is the first angle. The second angle is, if you go one full circle and come back to this again, that would be 360 plus 11.54. Now here you've got to be a bit careful. These are not values for theta. These are values of this angle. What was the angle? Theta plus 75. जो आपने इसको equate करना है, इसको theta plus 75 से equate करना है इन दोनों को. And then you can find the values of theta from this. You can see whatever that turns out to be. First वाले से theta क्या आता है? 180 minus 11.54 minus 75. That is going to give you 93.5. And again, solve this equation. This is going to give you 296.5 degrees. You get the same two results, but now this time you did not use a substitution. You can do it directly like this. Range दोनों में adjust करनी पड़ेगी, ठीक है? उसका आपने ध्यान रखना है. और इस वाले मेथड के अंदर एंड पे keep in mind you have to put this whole thing theta plus 75 and theta plus 75. Now, how many of you prefer the first method, in which we used a substitution? Okay, so because we did that first, right? How many of you would prefer the second method without using a substitution? Khala, you raised your hand in both?
No, I did the second one.
Okay. Okay, that's about 50-50. So, I want to decide which one to use when I'm going ahead with when doing practice questions. So, क्या करेंगे? Okay. So again, how many of you would prefer using a substitution? दोबारा नहीं हाथ खड़ा करना. दोनों में नहीं हाथ खड़ा करना. Okay. All right. How many of you would not prefer using a substitution? Like this. Okay. All right. So we are going to use the substitution. Like this. It makes it slightly longer, but yeah, maybe slightly easier as well. But that's your choice. आप इसको directly कर सकते हैं इस तरह से. I myself prefer this. You don't have to introduce another variable, but it's okay. आप दोनों में से कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. Clear है? Now let's do. We're not done yet. We have time. This clock is not correct. We have 6 minutes at least. Iman asked a question. I have to answer that. Yes, Iman. So now class end हो जाएगी. आपको question answer नहीं होगा तो फायदा क्या इसका पे? 44 and 46. There were two questions. 44 and 46. में से एक करते हैं. 44 and 46. The 46 अभी नहीं कर सकते. That's a concept that we haven't done yet. But we can do 44. Let's try this quickly. Find the possible values of x for which sine inverse of x square minus 1 equals pi over 3. How do we do this? Sine inverse of x minus 1. x square minus 1. क्या कैलकुलेटर से हम ये evaluate कर सकते हैं sine inverse of x square minus 1? यहाँ पे तो variable आ गया, we can't input this in the calculator. So what do we do with this? Sine inverse of this. Sine को उधर ले जाएं. So what you can do is you can write it as x square minus 1 equal to sine of pi over 3. When sine inverse goes to the other side, it's going to become sine. इस तरह आपके पास अगर इस तरह से कुछ होता है sin of x equals 0.2, तो आप क्या करते हो उसको x equals sine inverse of 0.2. So when sine inverse goes to the other side, it becomes sine. Make sense? And now it's just a simple quadratic equation. Sine of pi over 3, what's that? It's square root of 3 over 2, I think. Now this is what you have, x square minus 1 equals this. उसने आपसे decimals में answer पूछा. You don't need an exact answer. So it becomes x square equals 1 plus square root of 3 over 2. Take square root and see what you get. Plus minus what? 1.366. इसमें question में उसने कहा है 3 decimal places. You have to follow that instruction exactly. 2 decimal places लिखेंगे, you'll lose a mark. 4 लिखेंगे, उस पे भी you'll lose a mark. ज़्यादा भी नहीं कर सकते उसको. And the last decimal place should be properly rounded off. Okay, 6 के बाद अगर कोई बड़ा number आ रहा है 5 से, you'll have to round it off to 7. Is that okay? That was 3 marks, just this. सिर्फ ये करना था. Okay, let's do the second part. Sine of 2 theta plus pi over 3. This equals 1 over 2. And the interval that we've got is from 0 to pi. Now this is radians, right? उसने आपको कहा है आंसर्स जो हैं आपने पाई के टर्म्स में देने हैं, तो you have to keep that in mind as well. You need exact answers. Decimals में नहीं convert करेंगे. How do we start? Let's do the substitution. A equals 2 theta plus pi over 3. Alright? Now you need to adjust the range as well. How do you adjust the range? Input 0 here. 2 into 0 plus pi over 3. Input pi there. That gives you 2 pi plus pi over 3. So the interval that you've got for A is from pi over 3 to 7 pi over 3. This is the interval that you've got. So आप values देखेंगे quadrants में, इनके दरम्यान में देखेंगे. Make sense? Let's find the basic angle. So हमने उसको तो लिख दिया. This equation is now sine of A equal to 1 over 2. That means sine alpha equals 1 over 2. What's the value of alpha? Alpha? 30? Remember, we're doing radians. So this is pi over 6. Decimals में भी नहीं लगना, उसने pi के terms में answer मांगे आपसे. This is the angle, pi over 6. Make sense? या आप calculator पे करेंगे, you'll get that value, pi over 6. Radian में करके calculator, you should be getting pi over 6 from that. You have the basic angle. Now think of quadrants. Which quadrant can we be in? First or the second? You've got one angle here, which is pi over 6, and one angle here, which is also pi over 6. Now let's write down the values for A. The first value that we're getting, so सबसे पहले we have only positive values, so we don't have to go clockwise, anti-clockwise जाने. This is the first value that we get, pi over 6. Is that in the interval? Remember interval 0 to pi नहीं use करना है यहाँ पे. ये जो a का interval है, pi over 3 to 7 pi over 3. All right. Pi over 6 is less than pi over 3. So that is not in this interval. ये आपको angle नहीं consider करना. What's the next angle? This one. This is pi minus pi over 6. Is that okay? And the second one is, if you go one full circle and come back to this point, is that in the interval? That is. आप decimals में convert करके उसको check कर लें. 7 pi over 3 की जो value होगी, this will be 7 point something I think. And pi over, यहाँ से आपके पास आएगा 2 pi plus pi over 6, which is 13 pi over 6. This value will be 6 point something I think. Right? So this value is smaller than 7 pi over 3. It does fall in that interval. Is that okay? You've got these two values of A. अब हमें थीटा निकालना है. वो कनेक्शन क्या था दोनों के दरम्यान में? A equals 2 theta plus pi over 3. This is how A and theta were related. A की values यहाँ पे input कर दें. Sorry, ये क्या आ रहा था? This was 5 pi over 6. These are the two values of A. दोनों को input करें इसके अंदर. 5 pi over 6 equals 2 theta plus pi over 3. And 13 pi over 6 equals 2 theta plus pi over 3. Solve these two equations, you'll get the value of theta. This is pi over 2 I think. 2 pi over 6, that's 3 pi over 6, which is pi over 2. Theta turns out to be pi over 4 from here. इसको करेंगे कैलकुलेटर पे आपने डालने हैं, आपको एग्जैक्ट आंसर्स मिल जाएंगे. 2 theta equals 13 pi over 6, which is going to be 11 pi over 6 here, and theta equals 11 pi over 12. These are the two values of theta that you get from this. Make sense? Any questions on this? All right, thank you. I'll mark your attendance and then you can leave. I'm sorry for taking